So I want to thank you all for tuning in today for the second part of the Leap Texas Conference webinar series. Um, we have a great presenter today talking about supplemental instruction in high DFW courses. We were very disappointed, of course, uh, at the having to cancel the seventh annual conference this year. However, we are very grateful to our webinar series presenters um, who have offered to present the content they would have at the conference and to share that for everybody. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn the presentation over to Liz. Liz, I'll be here and I'll be monitoring the chat if you need, um, and let you know if there's any questions that pop up. So at this point, I'll turn it over.
All right, great. Thank you so much. It's great to be with you all today. I am Liz Brown, and my title at Abilene Christian University is Executive Director of University Access Programs. I'm also the ADA Compliance Officer for the university, and I teach in the first year program and the School of Social Work. So this presentation is about the use of supplemental instruction in remedial math. So we have modified the SI model to address a specific institutional problem. So Abilene Christian University, we are located in Abilene, Texas. We're a private liberal arts school, and we have about 5,000 students combined. We have an online graduate school that's based in Dallas as well. We are a doctoral granting institution, and we started an SI program in 2017. And we started that program in the biology department, which is still where we are most prevalent. So again, I oversee University Access, which is our disability services programs and all of our academic support services. So university tutoring, supplemental instruction, academic coaching. I also oversee international student services. So at any given time, we have about 10 to 12 SI leaders, and then I do oversee a full-time coordinator for SI. So that's kind of how we're structured at ACU. So the institutional problem that had been coming up more frequently year after year was our remedial math workshop course. So we call this MATW 019, and this is a remedial math course for students whose ACT scores range from, math ACT scores, range from 12 to 16. So a really wide degree of variability there. The entire curriculum is computer-based and self-taught, which is challenging for students who already struggle in math. And so we had been seeing year after year that we had a high number of repeats in this course, 2 to 3 times. I think the average is about 2.7. So between 2 to 3 times students are retaking this course. We had some students literally taking it 6 times before they passed. And the catalog policy related to this that really started causing some issues was that students have to pass this class before they can take upper level courses in their major. And so this caused a bottleneck, as you can imagine, when students are unable to pass this repeatedly, and then they get to a point where they're no longer needing any basics or core requirements, and then they have nothing that they can take because they are not able to pass their math class to move on to their upper level majors courses. Additionally, students were paying for this. They are paying for this every time they take it. So that amounts to then thousands of dollars over the course of their academic career when they would take this class repeatedly. In 2017, the university did move to a credit, no credit grading situation for this class, which really helped students' GPAs. So if a student who had to retake the course multiple times got an F until 2017, that was factored into their GPA. So the credit, no credit shift really helped a lot in terms of students' stamina, if you will, to stick through and take it again. The F is very demoralizing compared to a no credit mark at the end of the term. Additionally, this class was not supported by departmental or university tutoring because of the model, the online piece, and the fact that students are at such varying levels of competency. The 12s, which we don't see often, typically the low end is around 14, but we have had some 12s and 13s. So those those students are just really coming at math from a wide variety of experience and degree of comfort and just competence. And so the university didn't really have a great way to support these students or the department, and the department also found it difficult to provide tutoring specifically for this class because the needs were just so large. And then where this really, as ACU transitioned to Division I, this really started creating some problems for athletes and their eligibility. So this is a problem that was identified in stages and phases over the course of about 2 years. And at this point, when the problem was kind of cooking, I was in advising and student services. And when I moved to university access programs, I had the good fortune of having direct dealings with supplemental instruction. So as we were looking at how to address this problem, multiple things were being considered. So one thing that we offer at ACU that we thought we might be able to put to use here is our workshop method courses. So not remedial workshop, but just a kind of a regular workshop, which as opposed to Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, actually meets every day of the week. And so there is support built in to that model where students get a lot of intensive instruction, they get it daily, those concepts are reinforced. And so we knew that that model had a lot of promise. The workshop courses at ACU that meet daily do satisfy the university math requirement, even with the workshop designation. And the ACT math scores that those courses pull in are 17 through 19. So just as a reminder, the MATW 019 remedial course pulled in 12 to 16. The regular workshop classes pulled in 17 to 19 scores. So we know all of this, and we're looking to answer these questions here on the right side of the screen. So how can we reduce variability in test scores for a better learning experience? So how can we limit the range of ability so that the professor of the course can actually teach lessons in a way that's meaningful to the student and addresses the most common issues that they're all having at the same time? And then how as an institution can we support students' learning? Certainly, how can we save them money? No one felt good about the financial burden that students were having to shoulder. And then how can we prevent bottlenecks? So we don't want students to ever get to a place where when they go to register their junior year, they realize, oh gosh, now I can't take any of the classes I plan to take. And so we really, for athletes certainly, but for all students, that is a real retention barrier, as one can imagine. So we were thinking through the workshop model, trying to address the questions listed there on the screen. So the provost office is actually who tapped my office and said, hey, we have this idea, wondering what you all think. So our supplemental instruction program is small, but we have done, we've got a really great partnership with our biology department, and their students have benefited directly from SI every year very significantly. And so we have a great relationship with that department, and they are strong advocates for SI. And so their support of the program institutionally had really given us some credibility as we look to grow our program. And so the successes we'd had in biology had made their way up to the provost office. And this was all happening kind of at the same time that they were looking to address the math issue. So we, up until 2020, and I think it was called the 2020 Innovation Grant Program. So now that it's 2020, I think they'll be rebranding that program. But the idea is that we have an internal grant program that can fund new and innovative solutions to institutional problems. So the math department applied for this grant within our own institution, and then my office put the program together, managed all aspects of the supplemental instruction component, really tried to remove additional work for the faculty members related to this. And then they reimbursed us. The math department reimbursed my department for the cost of these SI leaders to help with math. So the way we structured the actual program was to pluck those students from the remedial 019 course who had an ACT math score of a 15 and 16. So the range captured 12 to 16, and the idea was we pluck the highest two numbers of scores from the math class, place them in a workshop of their university required math, whether that's quantitative reasoning or statistics if they were a nursing major or kinesiology major. And then we created two separate sections and offered SI to support the section that contained these students with 15s and 16s. So I'll dive into that a little bit more in a moment, just to give you a sense of the bones of the program. So the faculty involved was the department chair who helped spearhead the effort. He also taught a course, and then we had one additional professor who taught two courses that we were in. So to be clear, the students with a 15 and 16 math ACT score who would have normally been in the remedial course of 019 were pulled into the regular workshop format, provided additional support, and if they passed, they were then finished with their university math requirement, whereas in the past, if they had passed the 019 course, they still would have had to go on to take either the workshop or the regular course that satisfied their university requirement. So by putting them into this pilot program and providing them extra support, they definitely knocked out 2 for 1. So they got credit for the remedial class and the university required math. And then we prevent that constant revolving door of students retaking. So two faculty members, and then our office hired and trained, monitored, evaluated, all of that kind of logistical support, 2 SI leaders, one for the 120 workshop, which was quantitative reasoning, and one for the 123 workshop, which is elementary statistics. So like I mentioned, we had 2 sections per course listing separated by different CRN numbers. So for students who were in the 15 to 16 range, they were considered the mandatory SI section, and then the regular 17 through 19 scores were just the non-SI section. And so hopefully that makes sense. Other than that, we adhered to the SI model as it currently stands from UMKC. And just as a brief aside, we're a small institution. Our funding is limited, just like I'm sure everybody can relate to some degree, and we will never be certified by UMKC as an SI program. So we had a lot of internal dialogue about, do we modify the model? How, does the model then lose some integrity? What are we trying to do here? How important is it for us to adhere to the model, staunchly, or do we have some flexibility? And once we determined that, we'll never be a school who has a massive SI program and get certified and all of that, then we felt good about using this model as a starting point and then adapting it to meet our institutional needs. And for those of you at small schools, there's a lot of flexibility to be had, and that's a real blessing. So we were able to take the overarching model and lean into it, but also adapt it to meet the needs of the students, the institution, the faculty members. And so I feel really grateful to all the people that I worked with in this project to have that kind of flexibility to really meet the needs. So, but the actual SI model, we maintained that. So for those, you're probably all somewhat familiar with SI, but the model is that the student leader attends class with the professor, with the students who are going to SI. The leader actually attends class each week. So that's 3 hours per week of their weekly hour total. Then they do planning. They come up with ways to reteach the lesson. Our SI coordinator is constantly providing tools and academic support and new activities, ways to reconceptualize math, lots of resources given to our SI leaders. So there's at least a couple hours a week where they're prepping for their sessions. Then they hold 2 sessions a week, and those are typically an hour. They have 1 hour available as an office hour. So if there's a student whose schedule doesn't jive with the session times being offered, then we know there's at least 1 hour a week that the SI leader can be available to answer students' questions. Then they also have a 30-minute to an hour meeting weekly with the faculty member. And that's just to ensure that everybody's on the same page. I think one of the bigger hesitancies of faculty to jump into the SI model is that they're concerned about the ways students might get things wrong or reteach the information in a way that is not exactly what the professor intended. And that's a valid concern, certainly. And so we have really tried to preserve this hour, sometimes 30 minutes is all that's needed, with the faculty member to ensure that the faculty member feels really good about where things are going. And again, like I mentioned earlier, one of our biggest selling points around campus for SI is that this is meant to remove work from a faculty member's plate and support their course, not add to it. So we really tried to make sure that that's what we were doing with this project for the math department. And so then our SI coordinator hosts weekly training for our leaders. Those alternate weekly. Some of the trainings, and this is biology, Bible, math, all of our SI leaders gather weekly, and the trainings alternate. One week they are sharing tips and tricks, resources with each other. Week we have an actual training where that may be introducing a new software, a new concept. We recently did a book study through the book Make It Stick, which was provided to us by our Teaching and Learning Center. So just really trying to infuse those trainings with things like Bloom's taxonomy, helping the SI leaders really understand the process of learning, where a student is in that process, and then what are strategies and techniques for meeting those students right where they are. And so in math, this is especially important as these issues are not conceptual, but are very, very black and white, that the SI leaders are trying to reteach. So we tried to put, and we do in general with our SI program, but put a lot of support around our leaders and then stay in very close communication with the math department as things progressed. We did not implement a penalty. So this was probably one of our biggest sticking points as we worked to modify the model. SI is typically, the model states that it should be voluntary. Students should not be mandated to come, and I am on board with that 100%. In this case, however, I personally felt that some sort of an external motivation might be helpful for these students as they might not understand the implications of what retaking this course multiple times meant for them. And so we had varying differences of opinion on that. We ended up not implementing a penalty, which in hindsight was a mistake. And we had attendance issues. We had to really work to keep students engaged because there wasn't some sort of an external motivation. We had a lot of conversations about this issue. Our original idea was to set things up so that if a student didn't attend X number of sessions per semester, then they would be dropped by a letter grade. Nobody felt good about that. It felt too punitive for students. And so where we ended up landing, but never implemented, was an exam-based penalty. So we determined that 6 times in between exams, attending 6 SI sessions from one exam to the next was about the right amount that we wanted students to do to engage with this program. And that if they didn't do that, their next test grade would drop by a letter, but then they would have the next test and the next test to recalibrate, attend SI, and they would have multiple chances throughout the semester to really work on their grade, work on their math, and work on their grade, instead of letting it all roll to the final grade of the semester. So I liked that idea. It never gained traction as there were lots of people at the table. And so that's something we'll look at in the future if we are replicating this with the math department again. That's still TBD, as everything is in the world right now. But that's just a little background on what we did, what we wish maybe we had done, And then an example of what a penalty might look like that doesn't feel overly punitive, but is actually infused into the model to help the students stay on track and understand early in the course what they need to do in order to be successful. So as we moved online in March, our SI sessions have also moved online, and that's been great. Our SI leaders are doing Zoom sessions 1 to 2 times a week, depending on student need, and we're really happy that that's been able to continue. So for our outcomes, we are calling this a success. I think for all of us who stayed so close to it throughout the fall semester especially, we weren't sure what success would look like. So obviously, if every student had gotten A's, we would have been thrilled with that. But that's not what happened. But we still are calling this a net positive. So the biggest piece of the success is that no student failed. We did have a significant number of D's, and typically the SI model is looking to reduce D's, F's, and withdrawals. And so that definitely colored the conversation of, was this a success? You know, how are we defining success in this project? And so in some majors, as I'm sure is all the same with your institution, C's are required to get credit for the content. So, and luckily in these cases, the D's that were received were not tied to major outcomes. So the students were able to get credit for their math classes. So we had, and I didn't put this in and I apologize, we only had 16 students in the fall who were in this pilot program, and we had far fewer in the spring, just about 4. And so 45% of our fall students, this is all fall data, received these. And so that's almost half of them. And so at first glance, no one was thrilled with that. But at second glance, we realized that these students are now done with math. They are finished with their university requirement. They have not paid more than any other student. And so we were happy with that. We also, we enjoyed working with the math department to think through new and innovative solutions to the problem. My department tried to be very respectful and careful to include the math department in all the conversations and really learn and hear from them about what they hope to see from this. And so it was great to deepen our relationship with the math department, and you know, even long term, to really understand how we can explore other areas of support for the math department, whether that includes tutoring that we offer or academic coaching or just any of those pieces to better support students. And then we always had students coming, so there really wasn't a point at which the program just wilted and died away. There were always students showing up to SI sessions. Sometimes that was just 1, but most times it was at least 2. And I don't think I put this anywhere, but another high value piece of this were test reviews. And so there is in SI, there's some talk about requiring students to come to X number of SI sessions in order to attend the test review. I think that also has a lot of value in a situation like this as well. But we did have students consistently participating. So now they know what SI is, they understand more about the types of academic support that they can find at ACU. So all of those things at the end of the day, we were happy with. Our challenges I've spoken to a little bit, but we did not have a good incentive to attend regularly. So we had no penalty, we had no incentive. And, you know, this happened quickly last summer as we were moving into the fall. We put this together pretty quickly. And so we were still working out some of the details of the model as school began. And so, you know, this is just a list of things. If had I known what I know now then, we would have done things a little bit differently. But overall, you know, we were happy. We did have a smaller number of students than we hoped, but then again, the total in the first place was small. Again, I've spoken about this a little bit, but we did not adhere to the pure SI model. The pure SI model goes for problem classes, not problem students. And I hate to even use the term problem students because these are not problem students. But in terms of low test grades, kind of repeating the course over and over, that's what I mean by problem students. So SI typically support, yes, classes that have high DFW rates, but those are usually hard science, difficult classes, not supporting students who have challenges. And so hopefully that distinction makes sense. That's probably the biggest departure in terms of the model that we made in this project. Also, a lot of the research and literature says SI is not really effective in remedial courses. We knew that going into this, and we did it anyway because there were just not a lot of other options to try to address this problem. So that was one just sort of philosophical challenge that we revisited pretty often. One challenge that we really tried to speak to with math was this notion of, oh, the students are just trying to get credit versus, we really want them to come out of classes knowing some basic math skills. And so we just believe that this model accomplishes both. They do get credit for their university math, and they don't have to be put through the ringer of that very demoralizing cycle. But they're getting daily math classes, and they're getting at least 1 hour a week of additional math support. And arguably they are learning math if they're passing the class. Anecdotally, this spring, we were able to pull one of our students who was in an SI mandated stint of math, and she was our SI leader for spring. And so that is a success. And, we can talk about large numbers of students versus the starfish, kind of mentality, throwing one back in at a time. And this was definitely on a starfish level. But all of those students contribute to the overall success of the university and of retention numbers. And so, the more invested a student is in his or her own experience, the more likely they are to retain. And so we felt really good about the fact that a former participant learned enough, enjoyed the model enough to step in as a leader. So that's great. And then the math department, because at the beginning of the year, we talked so much about the SI model, they got a little confused as well about, well, if the SI model is to reduce D less than W, then we got 45% Ds, is this a success? And so I've talked about that some, but just navigating through those conversations was also a challenge, but we came to a good place. So this was a very small project, but we were very encouraged by it, and we are trying to scale SI at our institution in a way that works for us. And now, like I mentioned, we're all kind of waiting to see what fall will look like, but we're particularly excited about bringing supplemental instruction to our freshman seminar. One of the programs my department oversees is our Bridge program, which is historically underprepared students who we admit and then provide a lot of additional support to. They've never taken the freshman seminar. They've been made to delay that until the spring, and so then they don't take it with their freshman cohort, and it's not the best situation. So we've adapted that program. They're going to start the freshman seminar in the fall with the rest of the class, and we're going to put SI as a component in that course, and so really excited about that. We are currently in a couple of Bible courses. We're going to be increasing our presence in Bible, since we're a Christian institution, 5 semesters of Bible is required. And we are increasingly seeing that students are not coming in with Bible knowledge like they used to. We're a Church of Christ institution. We don't get as many students anymore who come from that tradition and who already have a working knowledge of the Bible. Our Bible courses are not meant to be weed out courses, and so we're finding more and more students struggling with those. And so we've been able to put supplemental instruction in our Bible courses to bring those students up more quickly. And so we're really excited about that, and they're introducing a new course in the fall that we hope to partner with. And then we're all up in biology. So we've worked with them, like I said, since 2017, and they're our biggest allies on campus. And we have great results from that program and amazing SI leaders. And we're just really thankful for their partnership. funding is a challenge for us. Funding is a challenge for my department. Funding is a challenge for other departments. And so we have lots of conversations about cost sharing and about, kind of adapting the model based on the department's needs, based on their budget, based on our budget, and just try to work those things out so that there's a kind of a win-win for all based on the resources everybody has. So just some final thoughts. And I think I've probably hit on all of these so far, but the voluntary participation piece we found to be a little flimsy in this situation, and some sort of positive or negative incentive, we believe now that we are able to look back, we believe that would help with attendance. We tried to ensure, and I think for the most part we were able to accomplish this, that at least one of the 2 sessions per week could accommodate as many athletes as possible. Typically these sessions are held in the evenings, which is also when a lot of athletes practice. And so we have a great relationship, my department does, with athletics, and we provide a lot of tutoring and academic coaching to our athletes. And so we were able to, pull all the practice schedules together, try to figure out when's a good open time, and make sure that we've carved out a spot for our athletes, because this program was in a lot of ways, the athletics eligibility piece was where this problem first showed itself. And so we wanted to ensure that we had a way to accommodate our athletes' practices and make sure we could serve them. And then if still they couldn't make it, we ensured that they made contact with the SI leader during their office hour. I mentioned the penalties applied to exams, not the overall course grade. And then the same bullet below I've talked about quite a bit. So I think that is everything. So like I said, we were happy and encouraged with the results of this program, even though it was on a very, very small scale and was modified from the original model of supplemental instruction. But we are hopeful that we can continue to refine it and serve more students in this way. So thank you all very much, and I would be happy to take any questions. Okay, Jeff, are you still there? Okay, well, I'm not sure who's still here. I will, let's see here. No, Jeff, we cannot hear you. I am seeing one question. Since there was an SI and non-SI section, were there any differences in grades? Yes, there were. We had higher grades, and I don't have that data just readily available, so I apologize for that. It would have been helpful for you all to see the comparisons. There were differences, yes. We had the bulk of the Ds were in our SI mandated section, so they had higher, the students with the 17 and to 19 test scores had higher grades. So there's a question about TSI versus ACT. Since we're private, we don't use the TSI. So our placement tests we use the AccuPlacer. So we just use ACT for this. And then let's see, you indicated the results may not scale up. That is, I would say, in a short answer, true. We are hoping to scale up, but honestly, the biggest limitation in scaling is financial. I think programmatically, we've got a great model that we could grow, but until we can fund it, and it was funded through a grant, like I mentioned early on, So neither the department nor our math department nor our department were responsible for it. But that's our biggest limitation in terms of growing, is just trying to figure out how to afford to grow in a way that is meaningful. So scalable in terms of model, I think so, yes, but we can't grow unless we have some money to pay our SI leaders. So I'm sure many of you are finding yourself in a similar boat. All right, I will enter my contact information in the chat box, and then when I send the slides to Jeff, I will add an additional slide with my contact information. I'm sorry I didn't have that as the final screen. All right, well, I just want to thank Jeff. I'm not sure where he is, but thank you, Jeff, for setting me up and getting everything going for me. I appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who attended. So y'all have a great day. Appreciate it.